Nothing screams Canadian nature more than moose. Moose live in almost every Canadian province with the exception of Prince Edward Island. They tend to be more associated with forest ecosystems, but you can find them in the middle of the prairie as long as there's enough food, water, and shelter for them. They're often seen also along rivers or lakes. They tend not to be found in more high mountainous terrain or the high Arctic. Also, many coastal islands don't have moose, as well as southern Ontario. They tend to be quite vacant there. If you look to Ontario, they tend to be found north of Orillia and Peterborough, so that's this black line north of that black line. The actual number of moose within Ontario changes quite a bit, and it's also managed by the government. The Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources sets specific goals for populations of moose. And if you look at this green map, you can see based on the light to dark gradation of the map, which areas tend to have or are managed for a lower density versus a higher density. So what that means is per 10 square kilometers or so, a low density area would have less moose and a high density would have more moose. So the area with the light green, so north of Highway 11, as well as around Ottawa and a few other places, that area is managed for a lower population density, so tends to have less moose within a given area. And this might be because the habitat just is not as good for them, or that the government actually wants there to be less moose for a variety of different reasons. Then if you look at the area with more of a moderate colored green, so this area is managed for a moderate population density, so a moderate number of moose. That's kind of around the middle part of northern Ontario. And then areas with higher density of moose is more around kind of northeast central area, so around North Bay, Sudbury, up to Sault Ste. Marie and Timmins, as well as across to the northwest into Dryden and Atikokan. The actual number of moose within a given area, so if we're looking a bit smaller, maybe around where you drive around to go hunting or fishing, or an area where you have your cottage, the number of moose within that smaller unit really can vary quite a bit from one year to the next, based on the weather, whether there's been any fires or logging, how many predators are there or competitors, also how many of them are dying from different reasons, so whether on the highway or from hunters or fires or other diseases and parasites. There's a whole bunch of different things that contribute to how many moose you might find in a given area. So where do you find moose? If you're in one of the regions of the province that have moose, how do you know where to find them? Moose are really big animals, and so they need a lot of nutrients and food to survive and thrive. Because they're so big, it costs them energy to get that food into their stomach and to get the nutrients from it. So they're always looking for the best quality food, and that means the best quality in terms of nutrients and also in terms of volume. So when they're reaching their head out to grab some food, they want it to be easy to grab it. They don't want to have to be walking all over the place for a bite here, a bite there, a bite somewhere else. That's not the way that they're made, and that's not how they're going to get the energy they need to survive. So they're really looking for that highest quality food. And what high quality food looks like for a moose is new growth. So new growth in shrubs, in aquatic plants. This is what is the best type of food for moose. They can eat other things, but this is that high quality food that they're looking for. So in the spring and summer, aquatic plants are really important for moose. So if you want to look for them, go to this along rivers, along lakes, in wetlands, these areas that have a lot of this aquatic growth that's new and that's growing up, that provides a lot of nutrients. Aquatic plants in particular are high in sodium, and that's something that moose really need in the springtime and into that early summer. As summer progresses and becomes a bit warmer into Ontario, then the moose are looking for something else. They're going to be trying to avoid the heat because the heat sucks the energy out of them. And so they're going to move, if it's a really hot summer, they're going to move to an area where the forest has more of a closed canopy. So basically the leaves and everything on that top layer of the trees, completely covers and blocks the sun, that's a closed canopy, and that's where they're going to head to. If it's more of a cooler summer, then they're going to look for something with more of an open forest canopy, where the light comes in and the light allows the plants to grow and therefore provides higher nutrients. So if you're looking at a shrub that's in the middle of the forest and there's not that much light getting to it, versus a shrub that's along the edge of a road or along the edge of a wetland, they have different nutritional value to a moose or to other animals that eat those plants. Other areas where there's this open forest canopy, so where the light can come to the plants, is in clear cuts where they've logged, as well as wetlands or old burns where a forest fire has come through and burned everything. Now that new growth that's coming up has a lot of light and therefore can provide a lot of nutrients to moose. In the fall and early winter, moose will then move to shrubby areas. So this is areas again with that open canopy. They'll move to areas more in the uplands, so kind of the rolling hills of forested areas. In there, they'll find shrubs that they can forage on that provides a bit of cover from the weather, and as well as looking at saplings. So new trees that are growing up, those are also a good place to find those high quality nutrients that moose need. In the midwinter and in times with deep snow, moose will then say, okay, the food quality is not very good. There's nothing growing really in the winter. So now what's more important is limiting the amount of energy the moose needs to use to access the food. And so instead, rather than focusing on high quality food areas, it will focus on areas that will protect it from the elements, protect it from predators, and then they move to more mature conifer forests or conifer deciduous forests with high canopy cover. Or lots of tall shrubs that can really protect them from the elements, protect them from the weather. That's really important for moose.
Check out these protected areas in Ontario to see moose.
If you want to see moose in Ontario, think about the province and which parts of the province have the highest density and therefore potentially the highest chance of seeing a moose. Think about this map here in green. Also think about the time of year and what food or shelter the moose will be after during that time of year. Hopefully these tips are helpful for you to find moose in Ontario.
Wise use. Educate, inspire, and experience.